Stepdad demanded I pay rent at 16 to teach me responsibility while his bio kids got allowances. So I moved in with my dad, and now, years later, he wants me to help with his retirement home bills because they wouldn't. So this happened years ago, but it's all coming back to bite someone in the rear end right now. And honestly, I'm just sitting here with the biggest grin on my face, watching it all unfold. Let me set the scene. I'm 16 years old, junior year of high school. My mom remarried this dude named Gerald when I was 13. Gerald wasn't the worst guy on the planet at first, just kind of there. He had 2 kids from his first marriage, Emma, who was 14, and Tyler, who was 12 when they got married. Standard blended family setup, right? Mom was trying to make it work, playing happy family, and I was just keeping my head down, trying to get through high school. Here's the thing, though. Gerald was one of those guys who was obsessed with teaching life lessons and building character, but only when it came to me. His own kids, nah. They were perfect little angels who could do no wrong. Emma got a weekly allowance of like $50 for literally just existing. Tyler got 40. What did they have to do for this money? Absolutely nothing. Maybe take out the trash once a week if Gerald remembered to ask. That was it. Me. I had a part-time job at a local grocery store stocking shelves after school and on weekends. Had been working there since I turned 15 and could legally get a worker's permit. I was pulling maybe 15 to 20 hours a week, making minimum wage, saving up for a car and college. Nothing crazy, just trying to be responsible like everyone kept telling me I should be. Then one day, right after I turned 16, Gerald hit me with it. We're sitting at dinner, and he's going on about responsibility in the real world and all this stuff. I'm barely paying attention because I've heard this speech before. Then he drops the bomb. So, Clara, your mother and I have been discussing it, and we think it's time you started contributing to the household. I looked up from my plate. Okay. Like chores? I already do my laundry and clean my room and rent. He cut me off. We think you should start paying rent. I literally laughed, thought he was joking. I'm 16. Exactly. You're 16. You have a job. You're making money. Time to learn what the real world is like. We're thinking $300 a month. That's more than fair considering what you'd pay anywhere else. My mom was just sitting there not saying anything. That's when I knew she'd already agreed to this behind my back. Emma and Tyler were smirking at each other across the table like this was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. $300, I said slowly. That's like most of what I make. Then you'll need to budget better, Gerald said with this patronizing smile. Learn to manage your money. Life skills, young lady. I wasn't his daughter, first of all. Second, I looked at Emma. Does she pay rent? Emma doesn't have a job, he said. She gets $50 a week for free. That's an allowance, not income. Different situation. How is it different? Gerald was getting annoyed now. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened. Because I'm teaching you to be an adult, to stand on your own 2 feet. Emma and Tyler are still kids. I'm 16. Emma's 15. Tyler's 13. We're all kids. The decision is final, Clara. First payment is due next week. I looked at my mom. She finally spoke up. It's just to help you learn, sweetie. You'll thank us later. Yeah, okay. So I went to my room that night and did the math. I was making about $450 to $500 a month, depending on my hours. After rent, I'd have maybe $150 to $200 left. That wouldn't cover gas once I got a car, my phone bill that I paid myself, school stuff, food when I was out, saving for college, nothing. I'd basically be working just to live in a house where 2 other kids got allowances for breathing. The more I thought about it, the madder I got. Not just mad, I was done. Here's the thing nobody knew. My dad was still in the picture. My parents split when I was 10, not because of drama or fighting, just because they realized they didn't work as a couple. Dad moved about 45 minutes away for a job opportunity. We had a custody agreement where I'd spend summers with him and some holidays. But since it was far from my school and my mom's place was closer, I stayed with her during the school year. Dad and I were tight, though, talked on the phone all the time. He'd wanted me to live with him for a while, but didn't want to mess up my schooling or friendships. And I was already dating John by then, the quiet kid who'd become my best friend, and, eventually, much more. He was my person, even back then. So, the next day after school, I called Dad. Hypothetical question. If I wanted to move in with you, like full time, could I? Of course you could, he said immediately. You know that. What's going on? I told him everything. The rent demand, the allowances for Gerald's kids, the whole double standard situation. Dad was quiet for a long minute. $300 a month from a 16-year-old. Is he insane? Apparently it's a life lesson. Life lesson, he caught himself. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're 16. You're old enough that a judge would consider your preference if we needed to modify custody. But let's try to do this the right way first. Talk to your mom. Tell her you're serious about moving. See what she says. She won't care, Dad. She backed him up on this. Then pack your stuff, kid. You can transfer schools. I'll make it work. That weekend, I sat my mom down when Gerald wasn't home. Told her straight up, I'm not paying rent to live here when your stepkids get allowances for existing. Either the rent thing goes away or I'm moving in with Dad. She tried the whole guilt trip routine. You'd really leave just like that over money? It's not about the money, Mom. It's about respect. Gerald treats me like a tenant and them like royalty. I'm your kid too. You're being dramatic. Gerald just wants to prepare you. Then he can prepare his own kids the same way. Why am I the only one who needs to learn responsibility? She didn't have an answer for that. Just repeated that the decision was made, and if I didn't like it, I could figure something else out. So I did. Took me 2 weeks to pack up my important stuff. I didn't make a big scene, didn't announce it, just slowly moved things to Dad's place every time I visited. My computer, my clothes, my books, everything that mattered. John helped when he could, slipping me boxes and late-night encouragements, promising we'd figure out the distance if I switched schools. Then one Sunday night, I loaded the last of my stuff into Dad's car, left a note on my bed that said, "Moved in with Dad. Thanks for the life lesson." And that was it. Mom called me absolutely freaking out the next morning. Where was I? How could I just leave? This was ridiculous. I needed to come home right now. I'm at Dad's. I'll be staying here. Clara, you can't just... Yeah, I can. I'm good. Dad's already getting me enrolled in the school here. We're all set. Gerald got on the phone. You think running away solves anything? You're proving my point about responsibility. I'm proving that I don't have to put up with being treated like garbage. Have Emma start paying rent if it's such a great life lesson. I hung up. The custody modification went through pretty easy since I was 16 and clear about wanting to live with Dad. Mom fought it a little, but not too hard. I think part of her was relieved she didn't have to deal with the tension anymore. Gerald definitely didn't fight it. He got what he wanted. Me gone. Life at Dad's was completely different. He didn't charge me rent, obviously, because that's insane for a teenager. But he also didn't just let me coast. We had real conversations about responsibility that didn't involve money changing hands. Here's the deal, Dad told me my first week there. You're part of this household, which means you contribute, but you're also 16 and in school, which means your main job is being a student. Everything else is secondary. So, yeah, I had chores, real ones. I cooked dinner 3 nights a week, which actually taught me how to cook properly instead of just microwaving stuff. Dad and I would meal plan together on Sundays, hit the grocery store, and I'd learn to make actual food. Pasta from scratch, proper tacos, stir fry, all of it. Dad was a solid cook, and he passed that down. Meanwhile, at Mom's house, I'd been lucky to get leftovers that weren't already claimed by Emma or Tyler. Yard work was split between us. Dad had a nice lawn that actually needed maintenance. We'd spend Saturday mornings doing it together, talking about life, school, whatever. He'd ask about my classes, my job. John, who by then had become more than my high school boyfriend. He was the person who'd drive 45 minutes just to bring me coffee and hold my hand in the driveway. Dad treated me like a person whose opinions mattered. Novel concept. The new school was an adjustment. I was a junior starting mid-year, which is never ideal, but Dad helped me navigate it. Went to the school with me to get enrolled, met with my counselors, made sure all my credits transferred properly. He was present in a way Gerald never was. Gerald couldn't even remember what grade I was in half the time. I kept my job at first, but the commute was rough. Dad helped me find a new one closer to his place, putting in a good word with a buddy who owned an auto shop. Started doing basic detailing work, some oil changes, learning about cars hands-on, paid better than the grocery store too. Was pulling in maybe $600 a month, working 15 hours a week. All of that money went into savings. Dad matched me dollar for dollar on the car fund. Took me 6 months, but I bought my first car, a beat-up Honda Civic with $150,000 on it. Dad and I spent weekends fixing it up together, teaching me basic maintenance. By the time I was 18, I could change my own oil, swap brake pads, do basic diagnostic stuff. Life skills? Actual ones, not Gerald's garbage version of them. The college savings part was huge. Dad sat me down when I was 17 and showed me his plan. He had a modest college fund set aside, nothing crazy, but combined with what I'd saved and some scholarships, I could go to state school without drowning in debt. He was proud of how much I'd saved on my own. Told me that work ethic would take me far in life. "You know what responsibility actually is?" Dad said one night over dinner. "It's not paying bills before you're ready. It's learning to manage your time, your priorities, your commitments. You've been doing that without me having to force it. That's real growth." Compare that to Gerald's approach. Pay me money or else. Yeah, super educational. Dad and I had an actual relationship built on mutual respect. Wild concept, right? We'd play video games together on Friday nights, watch sports, and actually talk about the games instead of Gerald monopolizing the TV for whatever he wanted. Dad asked my opinion on stuff around the house. Should we paint the living room? What color? What do you think about getting a dog? Little things that made me feel like I actually lived there instead of just occupying space. College was at the state university about an hour from Dad's place. I dormed the first 2 years to get the full experience, but came home most weekends. Dad and I stayed close. Junior and senior year, I got an apartment closer to campus, worked part-time doing IT support for the university. That's where I found my career path. Turned out I was pretty good with computers and network systems. I graduated with a degree in information systems, minimal debt, like I said. Dad cried at graduation. Actually, cried. Told me how proud he was, how I'd overcome a tough situation and came out strong. That meant everything. Got my first real job at 23, doing IT support for a mid-sized company. Wasn't glamorous, but it paid decent and got my foot in the door. Worked my way up over the years. By 30, I was a senior systems administrator, making solid 6 figures. Bought my house at 29. Married John when I was 28. We'd been together since high school. The coffee runs, the driveway talks, the long drives between schools had turned into shared leases, shared dreams, and finally, shared vows. Dad and I still talk multiple times a week. He's retired now, sold his house, and bought a smaller place in a 55-plus community. He's got hobbies, friends, a lady friend he sees sometimes, but won't call his girlfriend because we're too old for labels. He's happy. We're tight. He's coming over next weekend to help me and John build a deck in the backyard. That's what actual family looks like. Consistent support, mutual respect, showing up when it matters. Gerald never learned that lesson, and honestly, he never will. Mom and I stayed in touch, but it was surface level. Holiday phone calls, maybe meeting up for lunch once or twice a year. She'd ask about work. I'd give basic answers. We'd move on. I met Gerald and the Steps maybe 3 times in 4 years. It was cordial, but distant. That's how I wanted it. Fast forward to now. I'm 32. Got a solid career in IT, make good money, own a house, married to an amazing man named John. Life is pretty great. Dad's retired, healthy. We still talk multiple times a week. We're tight. Then, out of nowhere, I get a call from Emma. Haven't heard from her in probably 6 years. Didn't even have her new number saved. "Hey, Clara, long time." "Hey, Emma, what's up?" I kept my tone neutral. John was in the kitchen and gave me a curious look when he heard the name. We did small talk for a minute. "How have I been? How's work?" All surface level nonsense. She mentions she's married now, has 2 kids. I congratulated her, kept it polite. Then she gets to it. "So, I don't know if you heard, but Mom and Gerald are having some financial trouble." "Okay." I put it on speaker so John could hear. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, listening. "They need to move into a retirement community, like assisted living. Gerald's health isn't great, and it's getting hard for them to maintain the house and everything. Mom can't really take care of him alone anymore." Sorry to hear that. I wasn't really, but, manners. The thing is, the place they need is kind of expensive, like $4,000 a month expensive. It's a nice facility, really good care, but their savings and Gerald's pension cover maybe half. Social Security doesn't kick in enough to bridge the gap, so we're trying to figure out how to cover the rest. I stayed quiet, letting her get to the ask. John raised his eyebrows at me. Here we go, his expression said. Tyler and I were thinking since there are 4 of us kids, maybe we could each chip in like $500 a month each. That would cover the shortfall, and they could get the care they need. It's really the best facility in the area. Hold up, I interrupted. 4 kids? Yeah, you, me, Tyler. I guess 3 kids, but you know what I mean. The family. John made a face. He wasn't Gerald's anything. The assumption was wild. Emma, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm not chipping in. Long silence. Then, what? I'm not giving Gerald money. Clara, come on, he's getting older. He needs help. Mom, too. She's stressed out trying to coordinate all of this. It's really taking a toll on her. That's unfortunate. I hope they figure it out. Are you serious right now? They're family. No, Mom's family. Gerald made it very clear when I was 16 that I wasn't part of his family. I was a tenant. So I left. Been gone ever since. Math isn't really mathing on why I'd pay for his retirement now. That was 16 years ago. You're still holding on to that? People make mistakes, Clara. Gerald was trying to do what he thought was right. Cool. And I'm doing what I think is right, which is not funding his retirement. But Emma, look, I get that this sucks for you. I do. But Gerald and I don't have a relationship. Haven't had one in over a decade. I don't owe him anything. Actually, by his own logic, he should have saved better. You know, responsibility and all that. This isn't about the stupid rent thing from high school. Yeah, it is, though. That's exactly what it's about. It's about the fact that he treated me like an outsider, charged me money to live in my own mother's house while you and Tyler got allowances for existing. It's about Mom backing him up on that and choosing him over me. Actions have consequences. So you're just going to let them suffer? Mom, too. She's your mother. Mom made her choice when it counted. If she needs help now, she can call me herself and we'll have a conversation. But I'm not writing checks to support Gerald's retirement. That's not happening. Tyler and I can't afford $750 each per month. Clara, we have our own families, our own bills. Tyler's wife just had a baby. I've got 2 kids in daycare. We're stretched thin as it is. Sounds like a tough situation. You're really going to do this? You make good money. You don't have kids yet. You could easily afford $500 a month. It wouldn't even make a dent in your finances. You're right. I could afford it. I'm choosing not to. Just like Gerald chose to charge me rent. Just like Mom chose to back him up. Choices have consequences, Emma. He taught me that. Guess the lesson stuck. You're being petty. I'm being consistent. Have a good one, Emma. I hung up before she could say anything else. John was staring at me. He'd been listening to my end of the conversation. He raised an eyebrow. That was cold. Too cold? Nah, he said after a beat. They earned it, but you know they're going to keep pushing. He was right. Tyler called the next day. Same conversation, different person. He went with the guilt angle instead of the practical one. I was at work when he called. Stepped into an empty conference room to take it. Look, I get that you and Gerald had issues, he started. But that was so long ago. He's an old man now. People change. He's mellowed out a lot. You wouldn't even recognize him. Has he apologized? What? Has Gerald ever apologized for treating me like a second-class citizen in my own home? For charging a 16-year-old rent while his actual kids got allowances? Long pause. I mean, I don't think he sees it that way. Exactly. So why would I help someone who doesn't even think they did anything wrong? If he doesn't see the problem, he hasn't changed. He's just old now. Because it's the right thing to do. Come on, Clara. Mom's really stressed about this. She's crying to Emma like every other day. The whole situation is breaking her down. That's rough. She should have thought about that 16 years ago when she let her husband charge me rent. You were just a kid. We were all kids. None of us understood the dynamics. I understood them fine. I understood that I was working after school and on weekends while you guys got handed money. I understood that I was told to pay $300 a month or figure something else out. I understood that my own mother wouldn't stand up for me. I understood all of that perfectly at 16. Understanding wasn't the problem. Clara, look, I get it. It wasn't fair, but holding a grudge for this long... It's not a grudge, Tyler. A grudge would mean I'm angry. I'm not angry. I'm indifferent. Gerald's not my problem. He never wanted to be my family, so now he's not. Pretty simple. But Mom made her bed. She chose Gerald's approach over protecting me. That's on her. If she wants to talk to me directly, fine. But I'm not Gerald's retirement plan. He had decades to save for this. You and Emma want to help? Go for it. Leave me out of it. We can't afford it, Clara. I'm serious. Stephanie just went back to work part-time after the baby, but daycare costs are eating us alive. Emma's in the same boat. We're drowning here. You're the only one who can actually afford to help without it destroying your finances. Not my problem. When did you become so cold? Around the time my stepfather charged me rent as a teenager and my mother let it happen. That's when. Look, Tyler, I don't have anything against you personally. You were, 13 when all this went down? You were a kid. But I'm not Gerald's daughter, not his responsibility, and he's damn sure not mine. We're strangers who used to live in the same house. That's it. Tyler tried a few more angles, brought up holidays we'd spent together, times Gerald had driven me places, ways he'd been there for me. I shut down each one. Giving someone a ride isn't parenting. Existing in the same house for holidays isn't bonding. Gerald did the bare minimum required of an adult living with a teenager and thought he deserved a medal for it. Finally, Tyler gave up. Said I'd changed, become cold, that the Clara he knew wouldn't do this. Sure, buddy, the Clara he knew was a kid with no options. This Clara is a grown woman with boundaries. Consequences are cold, I guess. Then Mom called. That one was harder, not going to lie. She called on a Sunday morning. John and I were having coffee on the back patio, planning out our week. I saw Mom's name on the screen and almost didn't answer, but John gave me a look that said I should probably handle it. So I did. Hi, Mom. Clara. Her voice sounded tired and old in a way that hit different, small and worn down. How are you? I'm good. How are you doing? Oh, getting by. Long pause. Your sister called me. Said you won't help with the assisted living costs. That's right. Sweetie, I know you and Gerald had your differences, but... Mom, stop. They weren't differences. Gerald charged me rent when I was 16 years old. $300 a month, while his kids got allowances for doing nothing. You backed him up on it. You sat at that dinner table and watched him tell me I needed to pay to live in your house, and you didn't say a word to stop it. That's not a difference. That's a fundamental lack of respect and protection. It was just to teach you. I don't want to hear it. I've heard that excuse for 16 years, and it's still garbage. The rent wasn't the only problem, Mom. It was everything. It was the way Gerald always put his kids first. The way he'd buy them new clothes, and I got hand-me-downs from cousins. The way he'd take them out for dinner, and I'd be working. The way every single thing in that house revolved around keeping Gerald happy and his kids comfortable, and I was just there, an afterthought, a tenant. I heard her crying softly on the other end. Part of me felt bad. Most of me felt nothing. You chose him over me, I continued. Every single time you chose him. You chose his parenting style, his rules, his priorities. You chose to stay silent when he treated me like a burden instead of your daughter. That's fine. That was your choice to make, but now you're dealing with the consequences of that choice. Clara, please. I wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. Gerald's health is bad. He needs proper care. I can't do it alone anymore. The stress is killing me. We really need this. I'm begging you. And here's the thing. I could hear it in her voice. She was desperate. She was scared. She was my mother, and she was suffering. Part of me, the kid who still remembered before Gerald, before everything got complicated, wanted to cave, wanted to be the good daughter who helps her struggling mother. But then I thought about 16-year-old me, working after school until closing, stressed about money, scared about my future, while Emma and Tyler lived in comfort. I thought about packing my stuff alone in my room, writing that note, leaving in the night because my own mother wouldn't stand up for me against her husband. I thought about every holiday since then where I was an afterthought. Every birthday acknowledged with a card and nothing else. Every milestone she barely showed up for because it meant potentially making Gerald uncomfortable. Mom, if you had stood up for me back then, even once, we'd be having a different conversation right now. But you didn't. You let Gerald treat me like an outsider in your home. So no, I'm not paying for his retirement. You want help? Downsize. Sell the house. Move somewhere cheaper. Figure it out like I had to figure it out at 16. Your father poisoned you against us. Dad didn't have to do anything. You did that yourselves. I'm done with this conversation. I hung up before she could say anything else. John hugged me after. You okay? Yeah, I said, exhaling. I think I am. The calls kept coming, though. Emma again, trying the angle that Mom deserved better, even if Gerald didn't. Tyler calling John directly to try to convince him to convince me. Even got a Facebook message from some aunt on Mom's side I barely remembered, talking about family obligations, and forgiveness. I ignored all of it. Then Gerald himself called. That was almost funny. "Clara, we need to talk," he said, his voice shaky, but still carrying that same condescending tone I remembered from being 16. "I don't think we do," I replied. "Yes, we do. I understand you're upset about the past." "I'm not upset," I said flatly. "I'm indifferent. There's a difference. But your mother and I are in a difficult position. We need family to step up." "You needed family to step up when I was 16 and trying to save for college," I said calmly. "Didn't happen, so I stepped out. That was a parenting decision, to help you grow." "Cool," I said. "Then this is my adult decision, to prioritize my own family. See how that works?" "Clara, I'm asking you woman to woman." "We're not family," I cut in. "We're nothing to each other. You made sure of that." He sighed, the kind of sigh that tries to sound remorseful but only comes out tired. "I'm sorry, all right?" "Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry about the rent thing. Now can we move forward?" And there it was, the apology I'd been waiting for since I was a teenager. Only it came 16 years too late, and only because he needed something from me. "Nope." "What do you mean, nope?" "I mean, your apology means nothing because it's not real. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry it's biting you in the rear end now. If you were actually sorry, you'd have reached out years ago when you didn't need anything from me." "You're being unreasonable." "I'm being consistent," I said. "You taught me about responsibility, remember? Part of responsibility is living with your decisions. You decided to treat me like a tenant. I decided to leave. You decided to never apologize or make amends. I decided you're not my problem. Congrats. The life lessons worked." "Your mother is going to suffer because of your pride." "My mother is going to suffer because of choices she made 16 years ago," I said coolly. "And honestly, she'll be fine. Retirement communities have financial aid, sliding scales, all kinds of options. You just don't want to downgrade your lifestyle. That's not my emergency." Gerald said some other stuff, getting angrier and louder, but I just let him talk himself out. When he started repeating himself, I hung up. The messages kept trickling in for a few weeks. Emma tried coming by my house once, which was wild. I didn't let her in, just talked to her on the porch. "Tyler and I are drowning trying to cover this," she said, her voice tight. "We're each paying $800 a month, and it's killing us. If you just took $500, it would help so much." "Then stop paying," I said simply. "We can't just abandon them." "Why not? Gerald abandoned me pretty quick when it suited him. Mom let it happen. Actions meet consequences." "When did you become so heartless?" "I'm not heartless," I said, meeting her eyes. "I have a heart. I just use it on people who actually treated me like family." "That's not Gerald. Barely includes Mom at this point. I'm sorry you're in a bad spot, but that's between you and your dad." "He's your stepdad." "On paper, maybe," I said. In reality, he was my mom's husband who made it clear I wasn't really part of the family, so I'm acting accordingly. Emma's lip trembled, and for a second I almost felt sorry for her, but then she looked at me like I was a villain and stormed off. That was the last time she tried. Here's the kicker, though. Found out through the grapevine, Mom's sister, who's still on my Facebook friends list, that Mom and Gerald ended up having to sell their house. They bought a smaller place near a cheaper assisted living facility they could actually afford with their pension and savings. Emma and Tyler stopped contributing after a few months when it became clear I wasn't going to, and they couldn't sustain it. Gerald apparently rants about me to anyone who will listen, says I'm ungrateful, heartless, that he tried to make a responsible woman out of me, and this is how I repay him. Mom's apparently sad but resigned. She knows she burned that bridge and it's not getting rebuilt. Emma and Tyler both send me cold messages on birthdays now, if they remember. The kind that say, "Hope you're doing well," with nothing else behind them. We're Facebook friends, but that's it. They pop up in my feed sometimes with their families, looking happy. And that's fine. No hard feelings from my end. They were kids when all this went down, but we'll never be close. Dad thinks it's hilarious. He's never said, "I told you so," but I can see it in his eyes every time it comes up. He was the one who taught me that respect is earned and boundaries matter. He was the one who showed me what actual family looks like. John's family has basically adopted me as one of their own. His parents treat me like a daughter. I have that family feeling now, just from a different source than where I was born, and that's more than enough. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh, like, would it have killed me to help out with a few $100 a month? I can afford it. John and I are comfortable financially. We've got savings, investments, no debt besides the mortgage. $500 a month wouldn't even register as a real expense in our budget. We spend more than that on random stuff we don't need. But then I remember being 16, stressed about money, working my tail off just to have Gerald lord over me about responsibility while his kids got free money. I remember my mom sitting silent at that dinner table, not standing up for me. I remember feeling like an outsider in my own home, like I was tolerated rather than wanted. And every time I start to feel guilty, I remind myself they had 16 years to make this right. 16 years to apologize, to acknowledge what they did was wrong, to try to rebuild a relationship. They didn't, not once. I reached out a few times in my early 20s, tried to have coffee with mom, tried to find some middle ground. She always brought Gerald, always made excuses for him, always acted like I was the problem for not getting over it. You can't repair a relationship when one side refuses to admit there's damage. And you sure can't expect someone to fund your retirement when you treated them like a paying guest instead of family. So no, I'm not being too harsh. I'm being exactly as fair as they were to me. Gerald wanted to teach me about the real world. Mission accomplished. In the real world, you don't get to treat people like garbage and then expect them to bail you out later. In the real world, bridges you burn don't magically rebuild themselves when you need to cross back over. I learned responsibility, all right. I learned to be responsible for my own happiness, my own choices, my own family. I learned that sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is walk away from people who don't value you. So yeah, Gerald's struggling with retirement costs. Emma and Tyler are stressed. Mom's disappointed in me. And I'm over here living my best life with people who actually treat me like family. Sleeping great at night. Zero guilt. The life lesson stuck, Gerald. Just not the way you planned. People sometimes ask if I'll ever reconcile with them, especially Mom. Maybe when she's on her deathbed or something. Do the whole peacemaking thing. Honestly, I don't know. Part of me thinks that ship sailed 16 years ago when she chose Gerald's pride over her daughter. Part of me thinks I should be the bigger person. But being the bigger person is overrated when you spent your teenage years being treated like the smaller person in your own home. I've got a good life now. Dad's proud of me. John's amazing. We're talking about having kids soon, and I already know exactly what kind of mother I'm going to be. The kind who doesn't play favorites. The kind who doesn't charge her teenager rent while giving other kids allowances. The kind who stands up for her children even when it's uncomfortable. Everything I learned about being a good parent, I learned from Dad. Everything I learned about what not to do, I learned from Gerald. So, thanks for the life lessons. I guess they did stick, just in the opposite way you intended. Gerald wanted to teach me responsibility. Cool. I'm a woman who knows her worth and doesn't accept disrespect from anyone, family included. I'm a woman who keeps boundaries and doesn't cave to guilt trips. I'm a woman who remembers how she was treated and responds accordingly. That's the real world, Gerald. Welcome to it.